16.
Hey, Larry Elder here. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt and KHNC.
Good morning, guys. So great to be with you. I am enjoying another day. We are so close to having this newsletter up and running. So close. By the way, I can't tell if it's my headphones or if it's the microphone itself coming in and out. So if you're listening, call me 970-587-5171 and assure me that it is the headphones, not the mic. Anyways, I would like to lead off today's episode by again saying a little prayer for our country. I've never been a particularly religious guy. I absolutely don't go around proselytizing to people, and I really don't care who you pray to. But my grandma taught me pray to Jesus Christ. So, that's what I'm going to do, and you are absolutely invited to join me. Again, I don't care who you pray to, or if you're just putting your thoughts and your heart out there into the universe. Whatever it looks like to you, whatever it means to you, as long as it's done in goodwill. I think one of the great things about God is He gives us grace, and He's bigger than we are. And what that means is that He knows how to communicate with each and every one of us in His own way, in our own language. And you don't have to have a relationship with Him. It's exactly like your neighbor has a relationship with Him, and that's one of the coolest things about God. So, dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for great weather. Thank you for the safe drive. Thank you for keeping my family safe. I pray for the victims of the Boulder shooter. I hope that he finds justice, and I hope that the shooter himself can become right with you. And we live in a complicated, scary world, and we don't always understand why things happen the way they happen, or what's going on. Only you do, and I pray that you will be done, and that you bless our path and bless our country. We certainly need it right now. Please look over our border. Please look over the American people and help us heal the divide between them. Thank you. Amen. So again, please call in 970-587-5171 and let me know how this microphone is operating, if the volume is coming in and out. It's hard to tell if it's just my headphones or if it is the microphone itself. I have been having this problem frequently. In the meantime, I'm going to torment you guys real quick while I try a new pair of headphones by putting on a compilation of Kamala Harris laughing. So enjoy this.
Wow. In San Francisco.
First, after. So my point is, how do you define what you hear?
appreciate you being here on New Day.
Not everybody landed punches like you did, though. So you don't mean it.
It's called Candidate Mixtape. That was
Hip hop. Cardi B.
okay.
In an hour, Shake Shack. Oh my!
You said.
Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that exciting? They wrote some glowing piece about her in, I want to say it was the New York Times, where they said, she laughs from her belly, like the way you would if you were surrounded by your family, blah, blah, blah. And then they wrote the article about how, she said she was, as a child, marching for civil rights with her parents, and she fell out of the stroller and nobody noticed. And apparently she claims that they discovered her and they asked her what she wanted, and she replied, freedom. And it turned it out to be a direct ripoff of a Martin Luther King Jr. story. So I switched headphones. I do believe that it is this microphone. So I'm going to play another clip here while I relocate to the other room. And luckily I prepared for this. So I have another computer pulled up.
Work your style without overworking your hair. For salon quality hair at home, Tresemme.
And guys, I hope you're happy. Again, I would love to have you guys on. You listen to Bucky right from 13.
The Federal Reserve is in control of our money, but lately control is the last word you would use to describe the Fed. Emergency rate cuts, huge increases in their balance sheet, the constant blowing of bubbles and boom and bust cycles that just leave most of us busted. I'm Joe Jaquin, owner of the Patriot Trading Group, and we have been protecting people's wealth for almost 25 years. Stop playing the Fed's game and get your wealth protected. Call us at 800-951-0592 or visit our website at allamericangold.com.
Do you need your fireplace cleaned? Not sure if your fireplace is working right or not sure if the fireplace is efficient? Call Abundant Flame at 970-966-0217 to schedule your appointment. We service all brands of gas fireplaces, freestanding and built-ins, pellet stoves, wood fireplaces, and electric fireplaces. Visit us at Abundant-Flame or call 970-966-0217.
Hey, it's Larry Elder. Thank you for listening to me every weekday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here on 1360 KHNC, the roar of the Rockies. Do you own a business in northern Colorado or surrounding areas? Are you looking to reach a conservative, family-based, loyal audience which could grow your business? Well, take my advice and just call 970-587-5003 or email on the air at 1360khnc.com and tell them Larry sent you.
Hey everybody, we are
Lady Antebellum.
When we started out in Nashville, we never imagined what we were going to be able to achieve. We got here because we worked together and had each other's backs.
In America, we have the privilege of being a diverse society made up of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And that's a big part of what makes this country such a great place to live.
When we put aside our differences and work together, there is no challenge too great to overcome. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
The Bucky Dillon Show is a Liberty Revolt Media production. www.libertyrevoltmedia.com. All right. We're all set up here. So I don't know why I'm the only one that tends to have this little conundrum going on here with microphone problems in the morning. And we're thinking it's probably something to do with the soundboard not being grounded in the weather. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm going to keep putting the bug in people's ear, but seems like until it presents a problem for somebody else, it's just my problem. So, anyways, obviously in the wake of the Boulder shooting, Biden and crew are pushing for bans on assault-style weapons. Now, there's not actually a great definition for what an assault style weapon is. So, that's what makes it so tough because the people who are pushing for this legislation, the vast majority of them don't know anything about guns. And we know that. And then you end up, I wrote an article debating the legitimacy of our federal troops during the riots in Portland when Antifa set up the autonomous zone. And, typically I'm one of the first people to say that I wouldn't want federal troops coming down and engaging with the public. I think that should be a local thing. It should be a state thing. The problem is, however, Portland had disarmed its citizenry. So, what are people supposed to do when the local government disarms the citizenry and then Antifa sets up an autonomous zone that includes neighborhoods where people live, right? Typically I'm against the idea of federal troops, but I know that if my daughter was in an Antifa autonomous zone, if my wife was in an Antifa autonomous zone, I would be asking for all the help I could get. Hell, I'd call ISIS for help if that's who I had to call. So it's a really frustrated situation. If you were going to defund the police or deactivate the police, if you are going to embolden radical groups like Antifa while simultaneously disarming the citizenry, well, I mean, that is how you end up with half the population wondering, should it be okay for federal law enforcement agents to come crack down on a city? In any other situation, I'd be against it. But, after telling the police to stand back and defunding them and leaving the citizens bereft of defense, yeah, I mean, what choice do people have? So it's a very complicated situation. I'm certainly not in favor for government gun control. But that's it. That is what it is. So, gosh, it looks like the Denver Post has restricted access to their website until I get a membership, and I am certainly not getting a membership to the Denver Post. I'm sure every other host today is going to talk about gun control. So I'll let that be for them. I am going to talk about another topic. So, according to the Daily Wire, here's the headline: Biden, there's not a single thing a man can do that a woman can't do as well or better. and then they have a photo of Brian Shaw. And for those who don't know, Brian Shaw is one of the top competitors in the world's strongest men competitions. He's something like 6'9" and 400 something pounds, and they've got a picture of him like deadlifting a car. And it says President Joe Biden claimed during a White House event on Wednesday that there is nothing that a man can do that a woman can't do just as well or better. Biden made the remarks in the South Court Auditorium at an event marking Equal Pay Day. Quote, "There's a lot to do, but together we can ensure that our daughters have all the same rights and opportunities as our sons," Biden said. "And if we're able to do this, it'll be transformational for our nation. That's the goal. That's what this is all about. That's what this team, all of you, are all about." And then he fell asleep, drooled into his lap, fell down the stairs, sniffed a child. He continued, upon waking up, "Let me make one more point. You know, I've told my daughters, granddaughters, from the time they were old enough to understand what I was saying, and I mean it. There's not a single thing a man can do that a woman can't do as well or better. Not a single thing. Except deadlifting cars, of course." Biden was widely mocked over the statement. Ben Shapiro himself, host of the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro Show, posted a screenshot of a headline from a news article that stated FC Dallas under 15 boys squad beat the U.S. women's national team in a scrimmage. Ouch. The Dallas under 15 boys squad beat the U.S. women's national team. Devastating. Australian political commentator Rita Panihi wrote, "Such patronizing BS. Women can do plenty of things better than men, but there's no denying biological reality that men are stronger and faster. How many women want this job?" And then she posted a picture of a guy working in the oil fields wrestling these heavy chains and machinery. Fox News contributor Molly Hemingway wrote, "What a preposterous and sad claim. Men and women are different in many ways, and that's a beautiful and a good thing." Political commentator Allie Beth Stuckey wrote, "Maybe I'm weird, but I just don't need this patronizing nonsense to feel great about being a woman. I'm so glad there are things men can do that I can't. I'm also pretty thrilled that I can do things men can't, like carrying and delivering babies. I don't want to be like a man." Political commentator Steve Deese wrote, "Shorter tee boxes in golf, the lack of female slam dunk champions, the lack of female nose tackles in the NFL, and the fact hundreds of high school boys run faster than our best adult female sprinter says otherwise. But thanks for your beta pandering." Beta pandering. That's funny. Did you guys hear that that Putin challenged Joe Biden to a debate? I guess Biden called Putin a killer and a thug, something like that. Well, fact check, true. But Putin responded by challenging Biden to a live streamed conversation or a debate. No response from Biden. I wonder why. It's almost as though he has no confidence whatsoever in his ability to stand intellectually toe-to-toe with some of our leaders. And what's sad is I used to actually give Trump a little bit of grief because Xi Jinping is actually a brilliant guy. You don't get into the Chinese Communist Party if you're not top of your class, right? They only allow the cream of the crop into the Chinese Communist Party. Everything is merit based. So since they have no elections, how do they choose people? Well, you have to be recommended, and then you have to apply, and then you have to take a series of standardized tests to test your cognitive and emotional maturity, and then you have to do a series of interviews with CCP committees where they assess you based on a variety of factors, I suppose. And Xi Jinping was actually pretty sure he was born a peasant. I'm gonna look. Xi Jinping, born June 15th, 1953, is a Chinese politician who served as General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party and Chairman of the Central Military Commission since 2012. He is now the President of the People's Republic of China since 2013. She has been a paramount leader of China, the most prominent politician in China since 2012. The son of Chinese Communist veteran Xi Zhongjun, he was exiled to rural Yongchuan County as a teenager following his father's purge during the Cultural Revolution and lived in a cave in the village of Lingzhi, where he joined the CCP and worked as the party secretary. After studying chemical engineering at Tsinghua University as a worker/peasant/soldier student, Xi rose through the ranks politically in China's coastal provinces. She was governor of Fujian in 1999 to 2002 before becoming governor and party secretary of neighboring Zhejiang in 2002 through 2007. Following the dismissal of the party secretary of Shanghai, Chen Langlu, she was transferred to replace him for a brief period in 2007. He subsequently joined the Politburo Standing Committee and served as first secretary of the Central Secretariat in October of 2007. In 2008, he was designated as Hu Jintao's presumed successor as paramount leader. To that end, she was appointed vice president of the People's Republic of China and vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. He officially received the title of Leadership Corps from the Chinese Communist Party in 2016. She has also been a member of the 17th, 18th, 19th CCP Politburo Standing Committee since 2007. In 2018, he abolished presidential term limits, allowing him to rule indefinitely. Xi is the first CCP General Secretary born after the establishment of the People's Republic of China. Since assuming power, Xi has introduced far-ranging measures to enforce party discipline and impose internal unity. His anti-corruption campaign has led to the downfall of prominent incumbent and retired Communist Party officials, including members of the Politburo Standing Committee. He has also enacted and promoted a more assertive foreign policy, particularly in regards to China-Japan relations. China claims in the South China Sea, China's claims in the South China Sea and its advocacy for free trade and globalization. He has sought to expand China's African and Eurasian influence through the Belt and Road Initiative. As a central figure of the fifth generation of leadership of the People's Republic, Xi has significantly centralized institutional power by taking a wide range of leadership positions, including chairing the newly formed CCP National Security Commission, as well as new steering committees and economic social reforms, military restructuring and modernization, and control of the internet. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show right here on 1360 KHNC.
Hello, my name is Keith, and I'm the host of the program, The Pursuit of God, on 1360 KHNC. And I invite you to join me Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock as we go on this great pursuit of God.
Do you need your fireplace cleaned? Not sure if your fireplace is working right or not sure if the fireplace is efficient? Call Abundant Flame at 970-966-0217 to schedule your appointment. We service all brands of gas fireplaces, freestanding and built-ins, pellet stoves, wood fireplaces, and electric fireplaces. Visit us at Abundant-Flame or call 970-966-0217.
Back in the USSR.
Socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result, every time we object to a thing being done by government, the socialists conclude we object to it being done at all. We disapprove of state education, and the socialists say we are opposed to any education. Socialism. Frederick Bastiat, The Law.
Back in the USSR.
Reasons to own gold. Brought to you by the Patriot Trading Group at allamericangold.com. Reason number 647.
Most people don't even know that the courts have already ruled. Once money is deposited into the bank owns the money, and the depositor is merely an unsecured creditor of the bank, which means if the bank goes under, you get paid last. After the financial crisis, instead of breaking up too big to fail, the government and the Federal Reserve created Dodd-Frank and made too big to fail banks even bigger while putting your deposits more at risk. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. To learn more, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 800-951-0592.
By now, you know how good CBD can be for you. But here's some things CBD can't help you with. Those annoying calls about your car's warranty expiring, gay frogs, or racist cows, climate coaches, or that undying devotion to Alex Jones. This has been a friendly reminder from your friends at 1360 KHNC, the roar of the Rockies.
Be careful when you're dealing with a conspiracy theorist. You may end up with a whole lot more truth than you're used to handling. This has been a public service announcement from KHNC.
Great minds think alike. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt. Join me, Larry Elder, today at 5 on 1360 KHNC. Now back to Bucky Dillon.
So it's really interesting how the Chinese Communist Party functions. Even Xi Jinping himself, I mean, people refer to him as a dictator, and he does have tremendous power, but he is actually subservient to a committee. In fact, the committee could fire him at any time. The committee is very, very pleased with the direction China is going, and instituted an end to presidential term limits for him specifically. And this is kind of something that I have found personally interesting in the past, because in a way it's made other countries more trusting of China. And I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but think about this for a second. Every 4 to 8 years, the United States comes through and we renegotiate almost all of our trade deals, almost all of our international arrangements. And it makes it very hard for other countries to take America on its word, because they don't know, they have a hard time getting any consistency out of us, right? And if you know anything about markets, if you know anything about trade arrangements and just in your own personal life, do you really want to set up long-term business relationships with people who are really, really inconsistent? Think about it, right? At least they know that when they make a deal with China, yeah, they do break rules. They do cheat. But so does the US. And this is not in like a defense of China. I certainly don't want to live in a world where the Chinese Communist Party is at the commanding heights of global power. But I also understand why other countries may be less hesitant to make long-term commitments with the Chinese, because that they don't have a representative every 4 or 8 years coming in dedicated to undoing everything that the last guy did, whether or not it was good or bad. And that's kind of where we found ourselves today in America, is that because there's so much hyper partisanship in our politics, far more than there actually is on the ground, right? What's interesting to me is 36% of Colorado is unaffiliated. And excuse me, yeah, 30, I think it's 36%, yeah. And then something like 32% is Republican. You would think that in the Colorado legislature, it would reflect that, but it doesn't. It instead appears like our politicians are representative of the slim minority that voted them in. And they're far more interested in pursuing their own personal agenda than they are in pursuing the agenda of the broader constituency. Well, they don't have to worry about that in China. And as far as regular people are concerned, the people of China actually believe that their government has their best interest in mind. And it's really hard for us as Americans and us as Westerners to figure out how they could believe that, right? Because we see an utter lack of freedom, a lack of democracy, and a lack of the ability for people to defend themselves. And so, and I have a lot of sympathy for that. I totally agree. In my personal opinion, if it is illegal for you to speak out against the government without risk of the government showing up at your doorstep, tracking you down, and arresting you, if you have no right to defend yourself from the government, if you have no right to even cover what's going on in your society and report it publicly to other members of your society, then you're not human beings. You're livestock. You're hostages. But we also have to look at it through the lens of the Chinese. Their civilization is 5,000 years old, at least. They actually have, in some schools in China, they actually teach that the Chinese people didn't come from Africa, right? Like we hear this all the time, that all people originated in Africa and then spread out around the globe. They actually believe in their own evolutionary story, that they came from a primate subspecies actually in China and came from China. So that's interesting. But for 5,000 years, they have never had any form of democracy. They've never had freedom of speech. They've never had a Second Amendment. They've never had freedom of the press, right? Now, there have been times when Chinese citizens own guns, but they've always had an elite emperor, and it was a dynasty, as in only the family members of the Chinese ruler could ever become ruler. During the Cultural Revolution, they actually, in many ways, liberalized from where they were. And we have a hard time imagining that because we think of the top-down control of communism as anything but liberal. And it's true. It is anything but liberal. And the Chinese Communist Revolution was one of the most horrifying bloodbaths in all of human history. But they deem it as a necessary evil over there. We think of 100 million dead bodies, and we have a hard time getting past that. They have 1.6 billion people. 100 million it's like less than COVID. And, many Americans feel like COVID is a total hoax. As far as, in proportion to the population. So they think of where has China come from there. To put things in perspective, my wife's grandmother grew up in abject poverty, completely illiterate. Her parents, they had tough childhoods, but they saw such massive economic gains in the last 40 years that it just we cannot compare ourselves to them.
This is Sam Shook, Navy Vet and Medicare Specialist. I just want to thank the KHNC listeners for their support and trust in me as their Medicare specialist. If you are currently on Plan F, we are in a window of opportunity that can save you a lot of money towards your monthly premium. Please contact me at 970-4139. If you are getting into Medicare soon or are already enrolled and have questions, please call me at 970-413-4939. Again, thanks KHNC listeners.
A lot of radio stations boast about having 2, 3, 4, 500,000 listeners. But what they don't tell you is the average listener only listens for 4 minutes. A song plays they don't like, same old boring commentary, or worse yet, as soon as the commercial starts playing, they change the station. Here at 1360 KHNC, our listeners listen longer, a lot longer. We have one of the longest time spent listening in the industry. That means our listeners don't change the dial when the commercial starts playing because they don't want to miss what our hosts have to say next. Advertise with 1360 KHNC and have your message be heard. Call us at 970-587-5003. We also have the best rates in Colorado. 970-587-5003 or 1360khnc.com.
COVID has stopped Triangle Cross Ranch from conducting any fundraisers since March of 2020. Current state government issues has stopped our ability to have fundraisers until March 2021. We need financial donations to get through the rest of the year. Any financial support is welcome, or just send $1 US silver dollar a month to support our Christian mission. Triangle Cross Ranch, 36049 County Road 51, P.O. Box 727, Gailton, Colorado, 80622.
欢迎收听 KHNC 广播电台 Bucky Dillon 早安秀，大家的早安广播，谢谢。
谢谢东西，你是好漂亮。So it's really hard for us to look at things from the perspective of the Chinese citizenry. And another thing we forget is because their media is so controlled, they don't actually know everything that their government is up to. Like we talk about the human rights violations and things like that. You ask a Chinese person, they just don't believe that it's happening. They think that it's just a beautiful city in Xinjiang. They have no idea that it's happening. You ask them what's going on in America, they are afraid to visit America because they think we're like a gruesomely violent racist society. The Chinese state-run media will only cover the bad stories about the United States. And guess who helps them along in this effort? Our media. So they're getting their information from United States media, which is being interpreted through Chinese propaganda media. They don't trust the West. They don't like the West. And to be fair, they have some pretty legitimate reasons. It's really hard for us to understand. But the British colonial powers essentially put China through a century of humiliation. That's what they refer to it as. China got too divided, much like we are divided right now in the United States, and broke apart under the I believe it was the Qin dynasty. They had a series of incompetent, selfish rulers because it was a dynasty, and then you're talking about, some spoiled, rotten prince or princess follows the supreme leader, right? And they have no connection to the underclass whatsoever. They've just grown up in the lap of luxury their entire lives, and then they get into power, and they're in no way accountable to the people. It's a recipe for corruption. They have no legitimate support. The people under them just live under the fear of tyranny. And Western colonial powers came in right as they were having these massive internal political struggles in China, and was fractured and kind of came apart. And so these Western colonial powers started implementing all kinds of unfair trade deals with them, forcing them to buy opiates and all kinds of things. And they ended up getting huge swaths of the Chinese population ended up getting hooked on opiates. And they actually tried to fight off the British specifically to end the massive shipments of opiates coming into China. And the British Empire crushed them and then forced them to continue buying these opiates, and it sent their country back like 100 years. And there was a bunch of other things going on. Japan at the time was a pretty hardcore country set on world domination, and then their belief was that conquering China was the first step in conquering the world. So Japan, it was a fascist empire essentially, and they trained several generations of young men to be brutal, racist soldiers from the time that they were children. The Japanese, the highest honor in Japanese society was to kill or be killed in honor of the emperor. They believed that their emperor was appointed by God, and that it was Japan's destiny to conquer the globe. And the first step was China. And so Western powers came in, destabilized their society, or at least used the momentum of destabilizations that already existed in China to implement their colonial tyranny. And then through forced drug trading and everything, got huge swaths of the Chinese population hooked on opiates and other drugs, and was extracting the wealth out of their country. And then there was the wars in that region. The UN was a big part of it during the Communist Revolution. The Chinese were actually with Vietnam. The Chinese were waging their own wars, trying to unify the country. This has been China's biggest fear for so long, is that if they become disunified, that Western powers will exploit them, and Japan will exploit them. And that's exactly what happened during what they call the Century of Humiliation. If you want to learn more about what Japanese culture was like and their relationship to China and why the Chinese are so angry at Japan to this day, look up the rape of Nanking. Is one of the worst atrocities throughout the World War II era. But our lens of the World War II era is very Eurocentric. It's very Germany centric. We don't learn nearly as much about the communist revolution in Russia as we should. We don't learn nearly as much about the communist revolution in China as we should. And we don't really understand exactly why we were able to get away with dropping 2 of the largest bombs in history on Japan, and why the whole world was like, yeah, okay, even Japan. Very, very gruesome, devastating things happened. And then the communist revolution came around. Mao Zedong came around. He led the Long March, and he in the eyes of the Chinese people unified the country, because it was just a bunch of warring militias for almost 100 years with no centralized power, with no unity. And the people were being tyrannized tremendously under these circumstances throughout that whole time. And then the communists come to power. They start building relationships internationally, and China has become the fastest growing economy in world history for like 40 years. In 2 generations, they went from abject poverty and illiteracy to dominating the planet.
Reasons to own gold. Reason number 725.
The government goes out of its way to make you believe Social Security has an account with your name on it with money just for you. But the Supreme Court ruled that payments due under Social Security are not property rights and are not protected. Social Security is merely a tax, and the government is under no obligations to pay you anything. Call the Patriot Trading Group, 800-951-0592, or visit allamericangold.com.
Recover Now is a national campaign aimed at the education and awareness of the devastating effects of opioid and heroin abuse and curbing drug and alcohol addiction in the United States. Recover Now is sponsored by treatment facilities nationwide. Many of them have been where you are, and they want to help by spreading a message of hope and recovery. They're working hand in hand with major insurance companies nationwide that can help you or a loved one get clean in 7 to 30 days. Recover Now is embarking on a national outreach campaign on TV and radio to promote anti-addiction messages. So if you, a loved one, or someone you know has a problem with drugs or alcohol, do not wait. A new life for you could be 30 days away. Call us right now. I promise this call can change your life. Sponsored by the Detox and Treatment Helpline.
800-303-4607. 800-303-4607. That's 800-303-4607.
Is the driveway made of fruit leather, or has the apple stopped appling? If your half of a 100-foot cottonwood tree just needs a haircut, call Affordable Tree Service North at 970-568-6898. We have saved many trees everyone else said was dead. Show offs! Hey, you're not in this one either. From fire mitigation, bushes, trees to bees, that's 568-6898. God bless us!
LibertyRevoltMedia.com.
So it's a very complicated issue, and I really would like to help Americans understand the perception that the Chinese have. They are far more scared of Western imperial powers. They're far more scared of tyranny from Japan than they are the Chinese Communist Party. And part of this is because of how filtered their news and education system is. I mean, it really is just a propaganda tool of the party. But, you know, it's not completely without some reasons. The internet censorship is a perfect example. One of our biggest national security threats, one of the biggest threats to our democracy, is the fact that our internet is largely free and open, and foreign powers are able to implement influence over our media because we have freedom of the press. They're able to implement influence via social media. They're able to gather tremendous amounts of data because it's all out there. Think about this. Think about this for 1 second. If a foreign country wanted to really wreck the United States without going to war with us, which is the highest form of warfare, by the way. You know, people think of warfare as bombs and bullets. The highest, most sophisticated, most advanced form of warfare is tearing down an opposing country without ever firing off a single bullet. If they really wanted to wreck the United States, one of the most effective ways of doing so would be to hack into our social media giants and release everybody's public or personal data into the public, from your messages to your search history to everything else. If they were to do that, they would be able to watch, I would venture to guess, half the families in the United States disintegrate. Half of the business relationships in the country disintegrate. It would be such a devastating thing. They would watch our politicians lose any shred of credibility that they had, right? It would be so destabilizing. Part of the reason why China's media and China's internet is so censored is just as much to keep out foreigners as it is to navigate the culture and the minds and the conversations of the Chinese people. It's just as much to protect China from outside intervention, from outside foreign influence in their media and in their tech industries than it is to control their people. It's really interesting when you get into the implications of 5G technologies and how dangerous that could actually be for the world, depending on who's at the reins of it. It's really, really eye-opening, and it's a scary thing that China's at the forefront of that, because that really is what all economies and warfare is going to be based on in the 21st century. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show. I'll be right back with the second hour.
Are you paying too much for your home, life, or auto insurance? It only takes 10 minutes to find out. Hi, this is Kevin Bowles with Badger Insurance Advisors. Choosing insurance plans can be difficult. That's why I make it easy. I'll make the calls, compare the plans and prices, and find you the insurance plan that fits your needs. Best of all, my help is at no cost to you. Call me today at 303-359-1799 or visit